Geeks and geekettes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, comic book fans from all around the world, gats and gittens, mind dominant hair, and mushy, to all of you across the globe listening to me now, welcome back to another fantastic, thrill-packed, curiosity, satisfying episode of Ask Chuck Dixon, where you get to ask me questions about what I do for a living. And what I do for a living is I write comic books. Let's not waste another second of your precious time. Ben Alati, Morgan, aka the Warlord, whether reading the books or wanting to write the character or Skartaris, where his stories are based. Also, have you ever met Mike Grell? Yeah, Warlord. I remember when Warlord came out back in the 70s. DC was trying to catch up with the terrific sales Marvel was having with Conan and Savage Sword of Conan. And they did a whole bunch of characters, Hercules, Warlord, was it Kong the Conqueror, something like that. They had a couple of Beowulf. They had a bunch of sword and sorcery or fantasy element characters going. This one kind of borrows from a lot of different sources. I bought a bunch of the first issues. I don't know how long this ran. This didn't run a really long time. But I bought a bunch. I don't know. It seemed like kind of dollar store eggy rice burrows to me. So I quickly lost interest. So sorry. If you're a big fan. Have I met Mike Grell? Yeah, I met Mike one time at a Mid-Ohio con. And, we were all introducing ourselves, and I'm like new kid on the block. This is like 1986. And I get introduced to him by people that knew. I think Tim Truman introduced me to him. And he's all smiles. We're going to meet, some new comic book creator. And then he hears my name. And his whole demeanor changes. and it's like, does not want to talk to me. A little bit cold. Suddenly aloof. And I'd heard great things about him. And I'm like, whoa, what's this reaction at my name? What did I do? And I thought about it, pretty quickly realized that I think Mike saw me as a threat. This new young punk, kind of in his wheelhouse. We're kind of working the same corner. You know what I mean? He's doing, pulpy, more reality-grounded stuff with John Sable and things like that, and Green Arrow. And here I am, eventually Green Arrow. At the time, he was just on John Sable. And here I am doing Airboy and Savage Tales and, things like that, guys with guns. And I think he saw me as a rival, much the same way that Mike Barron saw me as a rival when I first met him. I'd like to meet Mike Grell again, now that the years have passed and I didn't take anything away from him. And much like, Mike Barron and I are friends. Mike realizes I didn't take anything away from Mike. There was enough room on that corner for more than one writer. But yeah, I did get to meet him once, and I did use Warlord Morgan in a 2-issue arc in Green Arrow when Oliver Queen, Connor Hawke hears that Oliver Queen may be alive. A little teaser for the readers, that maybe Oliver Queen's alive. And Connor Hawke and Eddie Fires set off on an adventure in which they find Morgan instead. Now, you got to admit, Morgan and Oliver Queen kind of look the same, so someone could make that mistake. And they discover that it is not Oliver Queen, and it is in fact Morgan. And it gave me an excuse to do a story with dinosaurs, which was the larger reason I did this story. So there's kind of a hole in time between Skartaris and our world, or the existent DC universe. If I remember correctly, I fooled around a little bit with The War That Time Forgot too. GIs and dinosaurs. I think I did that. I'll have to go back and look at those issues. But any opportunity to put dinosaurs in a story, I'm there. I agree with the credo that you put a dinosaur on the cover, you're going to sell more copies, and I'm perfectly willing to do that because I dig writing dinosaurs. So yeah, that's where my career intersects with Mike Grell and Warlord. That one spot. Paul Manoia. What do you think is a must-watch procedural TV show, whether medical, something like ER or House, or criminal, Law and Order, CSI, etc.? Well, House, for me, takes the cake on procedural. I don't like doctor shows. This is the only one I've ever liked, and largely because of the cast and the really, really smart writing and terrific ideas that the show presented. True medical mysteries. And the ongoing story of House himself and his struggles with pain from previous accidents. And of course, as most people realize, House is a thinly disguised medical detective version of Sherlock Holmes. House being Holmes and Wilson being Watson. And but you can't beat it. This show never failed. 7 seasons, and it never hit a bad spot. It never hit a bad patch. It seemed fresh every week, and I really like the fact that House was #1 television show in the United States. On numerous occasions, it was always in the top 10 during its entire run, and but often the most watched show on TV, and I thought that speaks well of the audience because it was an intelligent show. You really had to pay attention while you were watching it. This isn't something you could have on in the background. As TV network executives love shows that you can just have on in the background because they don't really care if you watch it or not, as long as you have it on. But this is a show you had to really participate in. You really had to bring something to it to follow it and understand what was going on and keep up with the characters. So definitely the best. And I know probably medical professionals take some issue with it. Of course, it's ridiculous. There's no hospital like this one, but so what? We can only wish there were hospitals like this. We can only wish that every doctor was like House. The other procedural show I really like, which is based on fact, Netflix's Mindhunters, which only ran 2 seasons, unfortunately. David Fincher produced and created show, and it was about the formation of VICAP, the Violent Crimes Registry, created in the 70s when the FBI and local law enforcement realized, we got some serial killers here who are operating cross state lines, and because there's no common database for these crimes, we're not all looking for the same guy. And I think it was the Ted Bundy case and the Henry Lee Lucas cases which brought this to light, because then Ted Bundy was committing his crimes bi-coastal, and Henry Lee Lucas and his creepy van, they were just driving all over the Midwest and South, killing people. And these crimes all seem random to the different local law enforcement. FBI was not gathering the information and collating it or paying any attention to these cases at all. And I think really the Ted Bundy case jumped out at everybody. It was like, wow, this guy was basically jet setting. He was traveling back and forth. So no wonder they couldn't catch him. There was not a national manhunt for him. FBI was famous in the 1930s for its national manhunts for Bonnie and Clyde, for John Dillinger, people like that. They're dropping the ball on the serial killers. And this series shows the dawn of the VICAP program and how it operated, and many of the real-life serial killers that they studied and interviewed, much like we see in Hannibal Lecter stories, to try to get an idea of what kind of animal they were looking for. And it's a really, really creepy series, but good. And it shows the procedure. It shows the dogged detective work necessary, the multiple interviews and looking at evidence and looking at it again and then having someone else look at it. Terrific show. We got to go overseas for others. CSI, Law and Order, got no use for them. Absolutely no use for them. They're nonsense shows. Got to go overseas. Scandinavia has tons of great police procedural shows, and by Scandinavia I mean Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark. They have some terrific shows. On ongoing detective series and series about police units and things like that. But my favorite of all of them, and apparently caused a worldwide sensation, was The Bridge. And this is a very, very good show about two cops, two pretty much damaged cops, looking for a very, very clever serial killer. Lots of twists and turns, but there's much made of examining evidence, interviewing suspects, interviewing witnesses, just doggedly. The lead character in the show is autistic, clearly OCD, and of course that is an asset in her job, and just a really good, and again another really, really creepy show. And France with Spiral. Spiral was a long-running show about a major crimes unit, and nobody does a better crime police thriller than the French. There's another one, I think it's called Braku, that was really good, about a sort of a flying squad in Paris. But this one, Spiral's really terrific. Lots of action, lots of procedure. Now in France, police procedure begins with either intimidating or punching out your suspect. The French traditionally don't fool around with criminal suspects. If they want information from you, you're in for a hard time. So, particularly on the show Braku, they got a little more brutal. But this show as well, they don't take "I don't know" for an answer in French police dramas. It's kind of a tradition there, and it makes it refreshing. So those would be my votes for best procedural shows. Gentle Savage. When it comes to all the comics you've written over the years, do you have a favorite location to write stories in? For example, Gotham, Forest Park, Santa Prisca, Bloodhaven, other planets. I kind of love the place I'm in. Gotham. I really dug writing Gotham. I really liked trying to create, in my mind, some consistency to the geography of Gotham. I wanted to name neighborhoods or name areas of Gotham so that I could go repeat them again and again, because I thought to readers that provides a degree of verisimilitude that, yeah, he mentioned that neighborhood before, or he mentioned that bridge, or that street, or that business, or whatever. And I was trying to provide some consistency. Back in the early 50s, the Captain Marvel Jr. series at Fawcett, they did the same thing. They actually made maps and everything and created a small town for Captain Marvel Jr., for Freddy to live in. And so that you would consistently see the same businesses, same street corners, same merchants, same police officers, things like that. And quite brilliantly tried to, like Gasoline Alley did, the comic strip Gasoline Alley, bring you into that world so it all seemed very familiar and consistent. And that's a lot of what I was trying to do with Gotham, a lot of what I try to do with every fictional series that I jump into. So, Gotham, obviously, big fave for me. Rippaverse, dealing with Florispark. It's kind of a different town. It's kind of a town that's sprung up over the last couple of decades. It's a boom town of sorts. And, there's a mix of the old and the new. Texas cities have a flavor all their own. I try to capture that. And again, naming neighborhoods and areas and streets and bridges, and then using them again and again and again, trying to figure out, and work out and establish for the readers a consistent environment. for the Rippaverse characters. A lot of fun. It's always a lot of fun. I like the logistics. This is something I don't ignore. This is something I dig into heavily. Bloodhaven, another favorite. I love Bloodhaven. It's the city that I created for the work I did at Arkhaven too was a lot of fun to create, because creating these cities from the ground up. And Bloodhaven, it was fun to create because it had to not be Gotham, and it had to be. And so I thought, well, it's not Gotham, it's not New York City, it's Newark. It's not Philadelphia, it's Camden. It's a city that suffers from being close to another larger, more influential city. And I ran with that, and I just down on its luck. I used Chester, Pennsylvania, and Camden, New Jersey, a lot as an influence. And the look of it, I took a lot from Manayunk, which is actually a very nice place to live, but is old. And then the idea that it was a city no one wanted to stop in, so that train lines and canals and highways sort of ran past it, ran through it, but not a lot of exits because nobody was getting off at Bloodhaven. So that was a favorite as well. Anywhere the Punisher is, from Bosca Verde to Croatia, fun to work on. Getting to know different places, like when I had him on an island prison, cutting sugarcane, stuff like that. Give you an idea of his dark little world tours he would take now and again, hunting down bad guys. Always cool. Conan, the Hyborian world. I wrote a lot of Conan. I wrote 3 novels based on that world. When I was a kid reading the original Howard stories, that world came to life for me, and I tried to capture the feel of each one of those different places, because Howard created a very multicultural world. Pastiche of Vikings, pastiche of ancient Britons, pastiche of Arab culture, sub-Saharan African culture, things like that. A lot of fun playing in the Hyborian world. Springfield, I wrote a lot of Simpsons, and Springfield was already a very, very consistent environment with repeat places, and just the fun of playing with them. A lot of stories you could get mileage simply out of location, because everybody knows the Quickie Mart, everybody knows Moe's, and the Android's Dungeon, and the power plant. And the Simpson house, Ned Flanders' house. Everybody knows these locations, and so you can have a lot of fun just simply visiting them in the story, and gags just arise out of where Homer or Bart or Lisa or whoever is. So that was cool, because there was a world already fully realized. And Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob. The fun about Bikini Bottom is there is no real continuity. There's barely any continuity of The Simpsons except the locations. But with SpongeBob, Bikini Bottom could be whatever you want it to be. If you needed a new building, you just invented it. If you needed a new street or catastrophe, or if you wanted a new mayor of Bikini Bottom, you just create the guy. The continuity is sort of thrown out the window in SpongeBob, and why wouldn't it be? The entire premise of SpongeBob is completely absurd, which is the fun of it. I always point to having campfires, at camp on the floor of the ocean, and you're not supposed to question it. Because it's just fun. So that was cool. And again, you had familiar places. You had SpongeBob's house, and the the Krabby Patty place, and Plankton's with a chum bucket. So you had the driving school. You had, again, places that you could simply visit if you needed gags, and the gags just sort of grew out of the location and the reader's familiarity with them. And recently, this will be released soon in hardcover and paperback, and hopefully audio, and certainly digital. Guns of Mars, which is my I visit Barsoom. It's a novel. It's a one-off novel set 1,000 years after the Edgar Rice Burroughs novels. It features none of the regular characters, and more importantly, features only elements that were in A Princess of Mars, which is now firmly public domain. So this was a lot of fun to write. I'll never write another one. I got this one out of my system, but I think you'll enjoy it. But visiting Barsoom, which is another world I read about a lot when I was a kid, and really dug, and imagining its bleak future post John Carter was a lot of fun. So this will be out maybe January in hardcover and paperback, maybe sooner. Maybe it might be available on digital within the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye out for it. It came out in a very expensive leather edition, which sold out. And that's where it premiered. But it will be at popular prices, as they say, very soon. Joshua Ignatowski. Do you think the film Godzilla Minus One is an example of the technique you described of following the on-the-ground, everyday people during an apocalyptic story being well done? It's pretty much 101 for that kind of story. I mean, in a Godzilla movie, I remember when I was a kid, I was just waiting for Godzilla. I didn't care about what was happening with the people. I didn't care about their little stories. I just wanted to see Godzilla. And I wanted to see him rampaging through Tokyo. And that was all I really wanted. And of course, you can't keep going like that. You know. So the guy that made this movie, who is a genius, he's made some fantastic movies, particularly some fantastic historical dramas set during World War II, the Japanese Navy and Japanese Air Force. Just a brilliant filmmaker. And he wisely decided that, well, let's create some characters we care about. And so he actually makes a Godzilla movie where you are just as enthralled with the ancillary characters, with the human cast, as you are with Godzilla and his, disastrous activities. And of course, it all makes it far more impactful because you actually care what happens. And when he's rampaging and people are dying and being crushed and everything else, it's like it's all the more horrifying and all the more tragic. But just an awesome movie. And apparently they're making another one. And I hope they keep to the same vein, the same level of storytelling. And of course, what was most remarkable about this was how stunning the movie looked. I mean, it is absolutely gorgeous. The effects are amazing and done on the cheap, apparently. These are better effects in this movie than in the last 4 Jurassic Park movies, which have had some pretty bad effects. So I hope they continue on. I wish this filmmaker a long career because I've enjoyed everything this guy's done. Very thoughtful. And if I could remember his name, I would say it, but I can't. And I didn't bother to look it up because I'm lazy. So you can look it up. Google it. Google the man's name. He deserves that. Twin spin. Joshua gets a twin spin, and he's back with, do you have any favorite accents or dialects? The Romance languages, French, Italian, always sound awesome. There's something about them, that makes you want to listen, even if you don't understand what the hell they're talking about. And if you're listening, Jean-Francois, that includes you. And I think, you can't beat Italian and French accent. Another accent I like, doesn't get a lot of attention, largely unknown in the United States, is Low German. There's High German and there's Low German. Think about somebody, think about in the United States, the equivalent would be somebody who's like boarding school educated from New York versus somebody from Mississippi. Low German doesn't have the harsh guttural sounds we're used to hearing from like shouting Nazis in World War II movies. It's a softer, almost sounds like a French accent sometimes. It's a softer. I can't remember the name of the actor in Inglorious Bastards, but that lead actor who plays the nasty Nazi in that movie, he's got primarily a low German accent. It's easier it's easier to listen to. Uh, so Low German would be spoken in Bavaria, Austria. Um, there was somebody had proposed a documentary about Austria and have Arnold Schwarzenegger, the world's most famous Austrian, narrate it. And the people in Austria who were cooperating with the project said, "You can't use him. He sounds like a hick." So even though Arnold has that, harsh, he leans into that harsh guttural sound. When you see Arnold speaking in his normal speaking voice, that's Low German. So there you go. If you didn't know that already. Now, another accent I think everybody loves is Texas. Texas accent's awesome. You think of people like Tommy Lee Jones and guys like that. Matthew McConaughey, when he's not doing his Louisiana accent, he's doing his Texas accent. It's a southern accent that's really pleasing to the ear. And we're used to like cowboys and all talking Texas. And I don't know a lot about the Texas accent. I'm sure there are different regional Texas accents around the state, but it's generally it's just cool to hear. What I'm not real crazy about is South Carolina. Think Huckleberry Hound. When they lean into it. Now, I know people from South Carolina, and they don't lean into it. It's a little bit syrupy. Think Andy Griffith, but really leaning into it, really stepping on it. Like when Andy Griffith would do his whatever character he was playing, trying to sound like an ignorant hick. And there you get the son. Lindsey Graham has that really syrupy, awful South Carolina accent. And I know a lot of people find the Boston accent aggravating, but South Carolina takes the cake for me. All right, triple spin. Joshua is back, as he always is, with which hero to help the Birds of Prey without being a permanent member of the team was the best one to work with them, in your opinion? Well, I can just, whatever, however you look at that. I mean, I can only talk about my favorites. I mean, obviously, Nightwing cooperated with Birds of Prey because of his association with Barbara Gordon. That was always cool. Obviously, anytime Nightwing shows up, he's effective. Power Girl, blunt instrument for Birds of Prey. And I kind of like the idea. I mean, when the idea for Birds of Prey was presented to me by Jordan Gorfinkel, it was Black Canary and Oracle. Black Canary and Dinah and Barbara, and that was it. But I thought, well, what if she had a partner before Black Canary? It didn't work out. And I thought, Power Girl. We don't see Power Girl a lot. So the partner that didn't work out was Power Girl. And eventually I would tell the story of why it didn't work out, why things came apart at the seams. But it was really cool to have her part of Birds of Prey history and bring her in now and again. And deal with that tension. Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle was very much an ally of the Birds of Prey. Made sense. He kind of a tech-oriented character. Certainly meshed with Oracle really well. And, there are many times he's a valuable member of the team. Also, the ongoing subplot of Ted Kord's. I created an illness for Ted Kord. I don't know how they ever resolved that or if they even bothered to resolve it. But, my idea was that he would be ill, not die. I didn't want Blue Beetle to die, but he would be ill and look for a replacement. And of course, my idea was that he would have Tim Drake as a replacement Blue Beetle for a while. And Spoiler would become Robin for a while. Because of that, I kept getting shot down because one of the big group editors hated Blue Beetle as a character. And so the project kept getting shot down. And then, of course, as soon as I left DC, they made Spoiler Robin for a while, but completely ignored the aspect that I had presented, which was a 6-issue Robin, or 6-issue Blue Beetle miniseries with Tim Drake as Blue Beetle. And Tim Drake, with his tech knowledge and everything else, is perfect fit. So for 6 issues of a miniseries, Tim Drake would be Blue Beetle. And I thought, well, that's like printing money. That thing will sell, as well or better than the issues of Robin currently running. So why don't we do it? And of course, we didn't do it because of personal prejudice against poor Ted Cord from one of the group editors. And then Viking Prince. There was a 3-issue arc, I believe, with Viking Prince, where Black Canary goes back in time to pre-Columbian America and gets involved in a fracas between the Iroquois Indians and Viking Prince and his gang of Vikings. And largely, I brought Viking Prince into the mix because I had Butch Geis on art, and we both were, DC geeks. And I said, you want to draw some Viking Prince? Let's go crazy. Let's do some Viking Prince. And so I came up with a story in which we could do that. But he was cool. He ably abetted Black Canary in averting disaster for the entire world. Roberto Dungato, sorry, I've anglicized you. Is it still hard as a creative who doesn't toe the line to whatever liberal fashion cult is trending at the moment to get into the market, or has it changed? Well, as far as getting hired at Marvel or DC, I think you still have to be a raging psycho commie. You got to be a total pinko to work there. You've got to be a postmodern feminist, whether you're man or female. You've got to be, non-binary. And it's very, very important where you put your PP. And you must be very public about that to work at Marvel or DC, I believe, these days. Unless, the rare exception. I mean, Dan Jurgens and Mike Perkins are killing it on their Batman stuff they're doing. But I think it's very rare. I think Dan must have pictures of somebody, particularly embarrassing pictures of somebody, because he keeps working there despite not checking off any boxes. But at Marvel, you got to check all them boxes. They give you 16 sheets of paper with nothing but boxes to check off. And if you don't check off every one, you can't work there. So if you're talking about breaking into Marvel and DC, dye your hair purple, get a bunch of piercings, and, try your luck. Because that's really, I think, the only thing they look at now. I don't think they're looking at talent particularly. But you don't have to go Marvel and DC route. There's this, this is like the 80s. The 80s, if you had a pulse, you could get into comics. Comics were big. There were a lot of publishers, a lot of people taking chances, and not a lot of talent on the ground. Well, we have the opposite problem now. There's a lot of talent on the ground that is not being utilized. Terrific people at the peak of their powers. So what do? We turn to the crowdfunding arena. I'm working on The Horseman with Joe Bennett. Joe Bennett was a superstar at Marvel and didn't want to draw their crap anymore. Not the crap that he drew, but, they came up with stuff that he just couldn't stomach. Political agenda nonsense that he didn't think belonged in comics. And so he's come on over to Rippaverse, and we're working on Alpha Core, The Horseman, and Zaylan. So we got like 3 ongoing characters in the Rippaverse that he and I, the Horseman and Zaylan, we created. And we're having, some degree of success with that. We're also working on an independent project together, which will be crowdfunding in the new year, which I think you're really going to dig. It's like a one-off project, something he and I have talked about for quite a while. Let's roll on with things I'm working on, because why not? I got an upcoming project called Buttermilk. It'll be sold through Compass Comics. This is the pencils for a variant cover in the works by Jim Fern. And I don't want to tell you any more about it, except it's a lot of fun. And I'm working with Bob Harden, Frank Fosco, and Matt Cosson on this one. And variant covers by David Williams, Adamir Leal. So it's a cool, fun project that I'm working on. And I don't need to go to Marvel DC. I just need to pitch it to Graham. Graham has only seen a few things on it. He's agreed that he would like to do it, but we'll see when he sees the rest of the material. He could always shut me down, because that's the kind of guy Graham is. Just say, hit the road, Dixon. I don't want any of this crap here. You're going to ruin my brand. I can hear him saying that now. And Seven Deadly Sinners, coming soon from Ripasend, the gear grinding, motorcycle roaring chase epic that done by Bob C. Harden and myself, which has been in the works for over a decade. It's been completed for about 3 or 4 years, and it will now be released from Ripasend in all of its glory, and some really cool tchotchkes too. So, you don't have to go to the majors to break in. I mean, you can break in online. You can just do Scott McCullough is doing this really cool Popeye comic strip, and he's just showing it on Facebook. I don't know if he has an actual website. Maybe he can tell me so I can put a link in here. But he's doing this really cool Popeye strip, like real classic Popeye strip, like it was done in the 1930s, and kind of melding the strip and the cartoons. It's got a great look and some really funny gags. Most recent one was, I thought, I laughed out loud. Good stuff. So, you can do this. You can do this. And look, Scott Adams, Dilbert was canceled in almost every single paper in the United States. And he continues to do it on X. So there's tons of venues. There's no reason not to do comics. You don't have to wait for permission. You don't have to pitch. You don't have to wait for that phone to ring from Marvel or DC or get interviews with any of the morons running those companies now. So there you go. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for watching. Hey, I forgot to put my logo up this week. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for watching and subscribing and all the awesome questions. Some really good questions this week. And I will see you all down the road.